Today I'm going to tell you a little bit of history from my handlebars. And they're new handlebars. I've got some Buckloss carbon fibre handlebars, really cheap on eBay, along with like my cat eye lights, wing mirrors. Also got the seat post in carbon fibre, and I've got mud guards and a rack that I can put my cankin on. But anyway, today we're going to cycle from Burntisland to Aberdour on the Fife coastal path. So we start here at the Hoch Road, and on your right hand side you've got the housing estate that used to be the British Alcan site where they made aluminium oxide. I did my first year of my apprenticeship, or my first year and a half of my apprenticeship there. And as we come along here, on the left hand side, we've got an area of land at the back of the castle that's known as the Point. And it's at the point where there is sunken treasure, king's treasure. So King Charles I was crowned King of England in 1625. But here in Scotland, we insisted that he come here and be crowned King of Scotland. So in 1633, King Charles I did a grand tour of Scotland, and on his way home, see, he was from Dunfermline, he was born at Dunfermline Abbey, but he basically was King of England and lived in England. And he was in Burntisland at the castle compound and had chartered 2 ships to take some of his treasure back across to Edinburgh to Leith. But one of the ships, the Blessing of Burntisland, sank, and it had on board millions of pounds worth of treasure. This is the bit of land known as the Point, as seen from the train heading to Aberdour. And it's shallow water. But there was a survey done in the 1990s where they did some side scans with sonar, and they did scans into the mud, and they found an anomaly which looks like the remnants of an old wooden ship. There's a scan into the mud to show that there's actually something there. And there I think you can quite clearly see what is the outline of a hull. And so divers went down and found a few artefacts, but they didn't find treasure. They found some ceramics and a few artefacts, but it's believed that there is millions of pounds worth of king's treasure just sitting off the coast of Burntisland. So this is the castle compound where basically Burntisland started. This is the original town. Castle dates back to, I think, like the 1200s, and it has a strong connection to Dunfermline Abbey, which is where King Charles was born. But the boats, you see, the harbour, it doesn't look anything like it did back in the 1600s. What you see now in front of the castle, like Burntisland Harbour here, I'll take you a little ride along on the bike. We'll go past Briggs's offices and along the front here to what used to be Bifab, and on the right hand side we've got the castle just coming up here, and on the left hand side, this, like the land at the back of the castle, is all reclaimed. So back in the 1600s this wouldn't have looked anything like this. On your right hand side is the castle compound. The stairs are just at the end here where we were looking down the way, and this would have been the waterfront. Roughly in this area is where the ships would have been loaded with all the booty that King Charles I had gone around and collected from all his subjects. Because you see, King Charles, he was a bit of a tyrant. He believed in the divine right of the king. He thought that it was God-given, his power. And it caused a lot of trouble. It actually ended up causing civil war in England. But his connection here to Burntisland is that the ship, called the Blessing of Burntisland, lies out in the water here, and there's reckoned to be millions of pounds worth of silver, gold and jewels lying in the mud, possibly preserved in an oxygen-free environment because of the mud. But who knows? It would be amazing if they could salvage the whole thing and have it on display somewhere. That would be incredible. But it's shallow water, and it always amazes me that one of these big companies hasn't come along and said, right, this is an easy salvage. But maybe one day it'll happen. There are rumours that there's maybe going to be a cofferdam built around it, which is like kind of the equivalent of putting a big pipe into the mud and then pumping all the water out, so that you can actually excavate without having to dive, because it's not an easy place to dive. The waters are really murky. There's pretty much zero visibility for divers, so that's mainly been the problem for trying to salvage anything from that wreck. But there you go, that's history from my handlebars. So this is the coastal path from Burntisland to Aberdour. Where we are now is Starley Hall. It's the correctional facility for out of control children. You know that somebody's escaped from Starley Hall when the helicopters are buzzing around the harbour and along the shoreline looking for them. And then just as you get beyond Starley, we've got this beautiful spot. This is the most beautiful spot of the whole run, at the waterfall. It's not quite halfway, but it's a nice spot to stop and have a look at the view and soak in the atmosphere. So it's quite a narrow path. You have to be aware of pedestrians. It's quite popular with dog walkers and just walkers in general, and there's not an awful lot of room, so you have to be courteous. And every time you see a cut in the video, that means I've jumped off the bike, I've dismounted to give way to people that are walking, because it's a bit too narrow to be just flying past people without giving way to them. And here is roughly what I would call the halfway point, where we go through the tunnel, underneath the railway and shoreside. It's definitely a much easier path to cycle than the Kinghorn to Kirkcaldy coastal path. There isn't really any awkward stepped area on this run at all. And if you get a nice day like today, when I filmed, it's a beautiful, beautiful cycle. And then on like the final run into Aberdour, you've got these 4 stretches of like beautifully tarmacked area with a couple of little inclines in between. And then we go around the tree, and that means we're almost in Aberdour. And here we are with Aberdour Beach in sight.
Thank you.
So Aberdour Beach is a really beautiful spot. This gets very, very busy in the summer. I'd like to say thanks for watching. I'd be interested to know if you enjoyed it, if you'd like to hear more history from my handlebars as I cycle about. I don't know if this is something that would interest people, but thank you for watching anyway.